episode was brought to you by New Black. They are redefining retail with Eva, a contextual commerce platform that unifies inventory and order management, POS, in-store apps, promotions, loyalty, and clienteling into one seamless system. This is Eva, this is New Black.
Hi everyone, I'm in Madrid today for another episode of our Europe's Retail Evolution series in partnership with Shop Talk Europe. Today, we'll talk about how technology can empower the frontline employees of a big group. Today, we have Javier Figar. He's the Chief Retail Officer of Tendem, one of Spain's biggest fashion groups. And today, we'll discuss everything we need to learn about physical stores, leadership, and technology. Here's Paula Macadi, and this is episode 60 of my show. Welcome to OFFBounds. Javier, it's such a pleasure to have you here on OFFBounds and here in Madrid. That is not so sunny today, but it's a pleasure to have you here.
It's my pleasure and thanks for having me. I'm sorry about the weather today.
Yeah, what happened?
I don't know. I ordered the sunny blue skies, but they didn't deliver.
Yeah, well, yesterday was beautiful though.
Okay,
I had to run in the park and that was super cool.
That's wonderful.
So I know about Tendem, but our audience is all over the world. Why don't you tell us what is Tendem and a little bit about the company?
Well, Tendem is a group based in Spain, made up of 12 brands. The three main brands that we have in our portfolio are Cortefiel, Springfield, and Women's Secret. And then in the last few years, we have developed or acquired a number of smaller brands. Effectively, it's a platform of brands. We operate in around 80 countries. Out of those, 13 we operate directly, the rest through third parties. We have around 1,800 stores worldwide. And it's a group made of around between 9,000 and 10,000 employees. And as we were mentioning before, we had big news this week because we had a new investor coming on board, Multiply Group from Abu Dhabi, who joined our group as a shareholder, owning 68% of our shares.
Amazing, great news.
That
was
news.
Like one day before my trip here to Madrid. I was like, oh my God, that's a great timing.
You picked the right time.
And you are the Chief Retail Officer. I think that's the first time I have someone with this title here on OFFBounds. What does your job entail?
Well, basically, I'm responsible for the retail network of the group at a worldwide level. So we operate directly in 13 countries, where we have around 1,400 stores. And my job is to take care and manage the retail business for the group. It involves making sure that the strategies that we develop together with the brands are implemented correctly and at the right time in the stores. It involves securing an implementation and deployment of our omnichannel strategy, which is very important.
I was going to mention that if that involves as well the digital part of it.
100%. The omnichannel, which is obviously, as the name suggests, is a combination of different channels. But in our group, the leading part of the omnichannel strategy and rollout lies within retail. Of course, there is 7,500 people in our stores, so managing that workforce, making sure that they are motivated, that they have the right framework and the right resources to work, is also part of my strategy. And then overseeing the national and international expansion of the brand.
And now we're going to have even a faster and
now
higher
we're going to have to accelerate.
expansion.
We're going to have to accelerate, because our new shareholders, they have ambitious plans to double the size of the group in the next 5 years. So we're going to have to grow both organically and through expansion, acquisitions, new countries, etc.
That's very exciting.
Very
and
exciting.
I see a lot of work coming up for you and for your team.
We're going to be busy.
For sure. And one thing that I think is interesting, we are here thanks to Shop Talk Europe, right? Where you're going to be speaking in Barcelona. So not so far from here. The topic you're going to discuss is how to empower the frontline with key technologies.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very exciting. Shop Talk will have 5 themes, 5 core themes. So unified commerce, teams, retail media, loyalty, and physical store, which is your track, which is super exciting. Why do you think it's important for leaders to share this type of information with each other?
I think events like Shop Talk, in my eyes, first, they allow us to stop for a minute and take some perspective and reflect. In today's world, everything goes at 100 miles an hour, and you're caught up in the day today, and you're all the time running. And I think those events, first of all, they allow us to take some perspective, to reflect, to think, to listen to other people, and take a pause, which we don't get that many chances in today's world. And second, because you learn. At the end, it's surprising how similar the challenges that we all face in the industry and also in other industries, and how many different ways of approaching those challenges we have. Some of the challenges we have today are new. They've never been experienced before. So we also learn as we go. So we're not always sure that we're doing it in the right way. So hearing how other competitors, friends, colleagues are facing and approaching those challenges, and they're bringing solutions to the table, gives us a lot of understanding of how we can shape and how we can adjust our strategy.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of like inspires the creativity beyond just the basics of retail, right?
100%. And it's not always that you're going to change 180 degrees the way you're doing things, but you take bits and pieces from something that someone said, from some technology that someone else is trying, and you start building your own path.
Let's go understanding the hard part of physical stores. The day-to-day of someone that is working the front line, what are the challenges that they have in the daily basis?
Being in front of the public and in front of the customers is always a big challenge. I think it's important that we never forget that they are our face towards the consumers. That the rest of us that work in the headquarters, we work in the backstage, but they're the ones facing our real consumers, our real customers, and that's always a challenge because you need to be ready every day. But in the case of Tendam today, I think, and talking and touching on the omnichannel that we mentioned before, we've really embraced omnichannel. And as I said, in our omnichannel strategy, the store network is the backbone, is the essence of our omnichannel strategy. Stores have evolved from being shops to being omnichannel hubs, in which the store people, they not only need to sell, but they need to, or sell physically, but they need to sell online. They not only need to sell the brands that they have in the store, but another 200 brands that we work with, third-party brands, and they need to learn about these brands. They also need to take online deliveries to be prepared, sometimes shipped from the stores. The combination of all of these elements, I think it's what in the last few years has become the biggest challenge for the people in the stores.
Yeah, so if you imagine that the industry has gotten more difficult and complex from the headquarters point of view, the front line has even harder, right?
Well, because it's where everything lands.
Yeah.
So everything you have, you have 1,500 people in headquarters thinking about new ways of doing things, about new technologies, about new processes, but it all lands in the store. So they are the ones that need to digest and really assemble all of this together. In many cases, it's people that have been with us for a long time, and for 20 years, they had been doing things in a specific way. So suddenly all of these changes, they're sometimes not so easy to swallow.
Yeah, changes in technology evolving and changes in the expectations of the consumer, right? Like everything is changing so fast. And it's very easy for us to think about emerging technologies and technology in general for the customer, right? Oh, the customer is going to touch this, the customer is going to do that. But we don't talk much about the technology that gives the employee ways to serve better this customer, which is all part of the consumer experience. I went to 2 of your stores yesterday. Thanks for that. He arranged a nice visit for me. And I saw everybody equipped with an iPad, mirrors. That would be the customer-facing technology, mirrors. I saw RFID on the counter. Many interesting ways you're using technology. What are your favorite ones?
I think the first thing I would say before getting into specific technologies is you mentioned something very important. I think when technology started landing in the retail, many brands and many organizations thought about technology towards the end consumer, towards the customer. And we all wanted to dazzle the customers, showing them crazy technologies. But really, in general terms, the customer, they're not necessarily that tech savvy. And they don't walk into our stores to be overwhelmed.
Maybe they just want to buy a pair of pants.
Maybe they just want to buy product, right? So I think throughout the last few years, that has shifted towards the use of technology to serve the customer, but by the people in the store. And I think that's key. And that's what we're doing. Yes, you did see the mirrors, which is something that we're testing. But to be honest, it is not my favorite technology that you were asking about. I think in recent times, we've successfully deployed 2 technologies, amongst others, but 2 technologies into our stores which are a clienteling platform and RFID, both which are for the use of the staff in the stores, not for the customers. And they're giving us more abilities to better serve the customer than what we had before.
How was life before and after implementing these technologies? What employees had to do before and how it is now?
I mean, if you take these 2 technologies that I've just mentioned, so with clienteling, you have all of the. So in our group, we have 24 million members of our club, and our 70% of our turnover comes from members in our club. We have all of that information. Before, the people in the stores could not access it. Now, they have all of the information of any club member, their history, their purchases, their points, their sizes, their likes and dislikes. With that information, they can make a much better shopping experience and a much more tailored shopping experience.
Like they're equipped with the right information about that specific consumer.
Correct. And before, you were asking, well, you had to improvise. You had to figure out what the customer wanted, what was the reason for their shopping, their size, their taste. Right now, you have all of that information. If you go to RFID, before, if a customer walked into the store and asked, do you have this in size 34? Well, you had to jump into the stock room, which sometimes they're huge, and try to find whether that size was available. Today, you can just look it up, understand whether you have it in your store or in any of the stores nearby. And if it's in your store with RFID, you can quickly find out where that product sits in the stockroom. So the experience is a lot quicker and much more effective.
So you'll save time of the employee searching for the product and
better,
do what it has to do.
Better experience for the customer.
If I have to wait 20 minutes to get an order, I already give up, right?
Exactly.
Before you started the interview, you said RFID was your favorite technology. I'm curious to understand why.
I said that, and you said that you don't understand why all companies don't have it. So exactly. I think you agree with me on that.
I just don't see the negative point of RFID.
There isn't. Yeah. It's a technology. I mean, the truth is that RFID, first time I heard about RFID was for retail use, it was 2010. I was still working at Inditex at the time. And actually it was when Inditex was starting to test that technology. And even for them, it's taken like around 10 years to really land the best use of the technology in the stores. So it's fair to say that that's a technology that has taken some time to evolve to become perfect or adequate for apparel retail use. But today, the truth is that it does serve a lot of purposes. So it's more efficient, it's more clear, it saves a lot of time, it allows you to measure and use many metrics that you wouldn't have without RFID. And it opens up the door to other uses that you couldn't do without RFID, like self-checkout or supply chain tracking.
Even like, I don't know, BOPs,
Yeah.
like all this omnichannel.
Correct. So I think it's not just a much better technology for inventory management, which is the primary use that it has in retail, but it just gives you another, it opens a window for many other uses.
Very good. But I think like another struggle that must be difficult for all the employees. You have how many stores?
Around 7,000.
So a lot more than the headquarters.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the decisions of these new technologies that will be implemented in stores come from the headquarters. How is that coming from top down, right? Like, do you have store associates not embracing the technology as they should?
Yes. I mean, it's not always easy, especially, as I mentioned before, when you have people that have been working in the stores for 20 years doing things in a certain way, and suddenly you ask them to embrace new technologies which change the way they interact, which change the way they operate.
You have to convince them like, hey, this is going to do your job easier.
Yeah, 100%. There's very few cases of active resistance, of people saying, I'm not going to do it, but you find a few.
Okay.
But there is a lot of situations of passive resistance or lack of willingness to adopt a new technology, sometimes because of fear, sometimes because of laziness, sometimes because of you just don't. So you do. I mean, it's one of the most difficult parts to make sure that those technologies are implemented. For me, there's two things that I think, that I think and that we do. One is explain. Sometimes we try to enforce certain things, but we fail to explain what is the purpose, what are the targets, what are the benefits that brings in the medium and long term. So if people fail to see the benefit or the use of those technologies, it's much harder that they're willing to go with it. And second, sometimes most of the times you need to enforce at the beginning, because it takes a little bit of pressure to make sure that people start.
And I guess there's the training part as well,
there's
right?
There's a huge training part, and then there is the incentive part. And let's be honest, what really motivates people is what brings cash into their pocket.
That's why we're here, right?
That's
like
why
we're
we're here.
Looking for something.
Correct. So I think you need to touch all those elements, because otherwise it's very hard for those things to happen.
Or I don't know if it's empowering, but like also listening to the frontline employees, their feedback. Sometimes they come up with an innovation in stores. Does it happen?
Yes, it happens. But more than that, many times, it always happens. You design a technology or the use of a technology in a certain way, but then the reality in store is very different. One thing is the theory, and another thing is the reality in store. So they definitely, and they're the ones who are going to be the daily users of that technology. So it's really, really important, the feedback that they give. It tends to be always very helpful and very precise and very constructive, trying to incorporate all of that feedback into the evolution of the technology that you've brought into the stores. Without that, I've never ever seen in my life the rollout of a technology that didn't require months of adjustments through the use and the feedback of the stores until you got it right.
Let's say you want to implement a new technology that you just found out and you're like, this is incredible. And you start implementing that in stores, get the feedback. What are the KPIs you're looking for when you're implementing these technologies? Either from, operational efficiency or like what would be a key KPI that you look for?
As I said, we get a lot of qualitative feedback because it's necessary.
I remember like drives more sales,
no,
right?
No. And then of course there is the quantitative KPI, of course, more sales, but for me it's more productivity. And not only productivity in terms of sales by FTE or sales by hour worked, but we're also tracking number of operations by FTE or by hour worked. And we define operations not just in selling transactions, but we've identified all the different operations that happen in our stores. Some are related towards the end consumer, but also others are related to the mere operations in the store.
Do you have an example that you can share?
Example of
when we implemented, we were this way, and now it happens quicker. Or
I was telling you about the example of a person coming in and asking for a size. But the truth is that through the implementation of technologies and this KPI that I just mentioned to you, productivity measured by operations by FTE, we've grown double digit for the last 3 years. So we're not having to increase as much our workforce or FTEs in the store, but our FTEs are able to do many more operations or transactions in store through the use of these technologies. So that we track a lot.
That's amazing. That's what I was looking for. This is what matters after all, right?
100%. And also it's that shift from technology facing the consumer to technology to support the people.
Yeah. And now something that is new to this series is that we have our sponsor, these guys here, New Black, and they have a question for you. It's related to RFID, so just a heads up.
Hi, Paul and Javier. I'm Gijs for the New Black, responsible for joint partner development and customer enablement. So I was wondering, regarding innovations in retail, how do you make sure innovations like RFID truly add value?
I would say 3 things here. One is you have to be very careful to differentiate those suppliers that talk the talk but don't walk the walk from those that can actually deliver. And that today you are bombarded with all kinds of technologies, with all kinds of new platforms, apps, whatever. They all say and have wonderful presentations, and they all tell you they can do amazing things. But you need to be very, very careful in really doing a thorough due diligence of whether they can actually then deliver. I think the next step is setting up a strong and coherent pilot. Test it in a few stores
before deploying.
100%, but not only test it, but also be honest with the results. Sometimes we like a technology so much that we fall into the bias of looking at the results from a positive angle, but maybe the numbers are not telling us that. So you need to, let's say, withhold yourself from really looking at things.
You have to be unbiased.
100% unbiased, because otherwise the pilot doesn't work. And this you mentioned before, Paula, it's a training. Because you can do the first 2 things, but then if there is no adoption by the people who are going to be the end users, that comes through training, through convincing, through explaining, through using all these elements together, it will just stay as a nice idea, but not happen in reality.
I don't know. I got very interested in the first part of your answer that you said you have to differentiate the vendors. How do you do that? Like, what is are you looking for there that you see if it's valuable or not?
There's no one easy way, to be honest. But I think through, we mentioned why we go to shop talk, because you hear real cases of people that have used things, and that gives you an
previous
element of information.
Feedback
from people they've worked, but also feedback from people they usually give you the name of the client that is a great sponsor of their product, but not the one that didn't like it. But you also have to try and get in touch with maybe that person that didn't select that technology, that didn't select that vendor. Usually track record.
You have to kind of to do your own due diligence.
Due diligence and a little bit also like when you're hiring for a position in your team and you interview them once, twice, 3 times, from the operation side, from the IT side, from whatever, and then if possible, you speak with their previous employers to understand and get that feedback from them. And then the pilot is going to also show you whether what they're saying is real or is just theory.
One thing that you've shared already, not here, but in other shows, is that you like the frontline to have ownership and be creative in their roles. What do you mean by that? And how do you allow them to do that with technology?
What I mean by that is that in our case, we have 1,800 stores worldwide. You can't possibly think that you're capable of running 1,800 stores from a headquarters. You need to be able to trust and empower the people that are there in the store every day, and that the ones that, as I mentioned before, are facing the end consumer. Now, of course, you need to do that within certain parameters, making sure that the way they manage, the way they take ownership is in the way that is aligned with the brand standards, with the company's vision and values. I don't think technology itself is what makes that, but technology, what it allows, or is an enabler for that. Why? Because it has facilitated a lot the training, remote training, the improvement in channels that you can communicate with the stores, the way that that information is brought to life. So through training, through understanding, through development of the people, you allow them to become more autonomous and more owners of their own store within the framework that you want the company and the brand to go. And technology has allowed that to happen. For me, technology is not the end, but it's a means to facilitating that for the teams in the stores.
So yesterday when I was at one of your stores, I was with Carlota, and she was sharing with me something that I have found. I've never been in the store operation, so that was an experience for me, right? So she was sharing with me like, oh, if you're getting delivered 1,000 boxes tomorrow, then the manager can know how many people they will need in the next day. Instead of 2 that we open the store, we'll need probably like 5. So this is the type of empowerment that the managers will have.
That's one of them for sure. And as I said, from stores going from a shop to an omnichannel hub and having to perform many more types of operations, if you don't give them certain visibility and if you don't give them certain tools to be able to manage that workload, you can sink them. You can really drown them in the day-to-day planning. But also, we bring to the stores a lot more information about the collections, a lot more information about the fabrics of the product, a lot more information about the inspiration of the collections. We have gamification platform that allows the store associates to learn about the 200 third-party brands that we work with. So they learn about Jack & Jones or about Levi's or about any of the other brands that we work with. So they become a lot more confident in selling those brands. So all of that would not be possible without technology.
That makes me wonder if, because they have all these tools and it makes their job, I wouldn't say easier, but more complete. Do you have less turnover of employees?
We've reduced the turnover in recent years, but I wouldn't say it's because of these. I think all of these technologies that we've introduced have helped the people believe that they're better in doing their job. But turnover usually comes from other kind of reasons. So we have reduced our turnover, which is something that we're very proud of. But I wouldn't say this has been an element that has been key for this.
I just imagine that if I'm a store associate and I worked in a store that I had to look for products in the back room like crazy the whole day, and now I don't have to do that, I'll be very happy. Or like count the inventory,
Yeah, well, inventory is another one that RFID has completely changed the landscape. But yeah, so I think we've removed some of the functions that didn't add value, and that obviously feels good in stores. Yeah.
Let's talk about the future a little bit. How do you think the future of the stores are going to be? Let's say in 5 years. You have a lot more stores to take care of in 5 years. So
There was a time just before COVID and during COVID when there was this theory that retail stores were going to disappear and that the world was only going to be online. And then when COVID was over, we saw people running to the stores and traffic just going up. And I think specifically in apparel, people want that experience of being in the stores, of touching the product, of seeing the product, of trying the product on. So I think the stores have survived the test and are here to stay. But it's true that they're changing in the way they or in how they operate and how they are. The store of the future probably needs to serve 4 purposes. One would be kind of a showroom, meaning a place where you have the product and where you see it, where you touch it, where you can really see the color, you try it on, and that element is what the physical experience brings. Another one is being a space where people can connect with the brands and they can really understand what the brand stands for, and that's why music is important. That's why aroma is important. That's why the store assistants are important in the way they address to you, and because you try to involve with all the senses the consumer to explain to them what the brand is about. The third would be a place of assistance and advice. Still today, there's people that have their own style and don't need anybody to tell them whether green is good or red is better or whatever.
I am someone that needs assistance.
But there's other people that like to hear about people that are experts in the field and what looks good, what are the latest trends, what combines well with what, and that the store can provide. And the last one is probably the stores are becoming more a logistical element in which the physical and the digital world collide. But as I said, where you prepare deliveries, where you receive deliveries, where you ship orders, and it has become
instead of using the warehouses, you just use the store that is closer to the customer.
It's closer to the customer, so you provide that experience.
Very good. And if you could prioritize one technology that will impact your teams in the next 5 years, which one will be?
We've started with RFID, but we've not finished.
Okay.
We have deployed RFID in 2 of our brands, Springfield and Cortefiel, but we still need to do the rollout in the other brands. And for us and for me, that is the priority right now, based on everything that we were saying before and all the benefits that RFID brings. We are working with other technologies at the same time. But for me, and as you mentioned before, until we finish the rollout of RFID to all our brands and all our countries, that's the priority for us.
Yeah, and you have more stores and more countries soon. And if you were to meet now a new retail executive, what would be your advice to this person on driving digital transformation in stores? For the leader, I
think we can summarize a few of the points that we mentioned before. We start by saying that the technology needs to serve a purpose. I think the days when we wanted to surprise the customer with the technology that 2 days later was of no use are over. So technology needs to serve a clear purpose, and you need to be certain of that. And then it's a little bit the elements that we mentioned before, finding the right partner, the one that can walk the walk and deliver on their promises. There was a time whenever I heard the word integration, I started shaking because integrations with certain technologies have been so hard and so disastrous that whenever I heard that word, I would start running away. So that is not something to underestimate. Pilot store, like we said, is very important. And then ultimately, the key part is the adoption at store level. And we already touched on a few things that you need to do there. And I would say that's probably the most important one, because everything that you do before is more on the theory side. But if the technology doesn't land in the right way and it's not used in the right way at store level, it just won't work.
So that would be training, showing what the technology is for, how it's going to result in the work.
Correct. Training, explaining the benefits and what you're trying to obtain with that technology, enforcing the use of the technology, and I would add linking it to incentives, because that's what really makes the change.
Very good. This is a masterclass for everybody working in retail. Thank you so much. Now we have our quickfire questions. Are you ready?
Right.
Now you just have to answer with 1 or 2 words. That's
Okay.
good. Except from one that I think you have to elaborate a little bit more. First one. What is one book that really changed your life that you recommend?
Oh,
You can think, no problem.
I mean, this is not related to I'm going to use more than one word, but
It's fine.
it's not related to retail, but it's related to leadership. My brother gifted me a book called Endurance, which is the story of Ernest Shackleton, which many people don't know about him. He was a British explorer that was stranded in the South Pole, and with a crew of 28 members, and had to manage how to get out of there. The story is fabulous, and I can't stop thinking about that book.
And that relates to leadership?
Yeah, I mean, he's an example of leadership and how to really manage people and understand the strengths and weaknesses of the people that work with you.
Amazing. I'll read that. I'll buy it right now. What is a must-have skill for store teams? It's hard to come up with one, right?
I was thinking of 2. If you allow me, I would say 2.
Okay.
One is resilience, and the other one is empathy. Working in a store is hard. I mean, it's not an easy job, and I respect very much the people that work there. But it takes someone that can handle frustration, that can be on top of his game every day, that can overcome difficult situations. So resilience. And then empathy, because ultimately it's a team work, and you have to work well with your teammates and also work well with your customers. So if you're not empathetic, it's hard.
What is one store that you walked in that blew your mind? It can be any of yours.
I mean, I would say the first time I walked into the Nike store in London, in the crossing of Regent Street with
Oxford.
Oxford, and you had a basketball court and you had a running track and you had. I mean, I was very impressed.
I had the same feeling when I went to the Shanghai store. I was like, oh wow. I spent like 5 hours there. What is your one tip to prepare for Shop Talk Europe for everybody that is going there?
Other than coming with an open mind and willingness to hear and to allow people to challenge the way you see things, it's also maybe not staying only in your own field of expertise, but going to see and to hear people that are a little bit more away from what you do every day, because that opens your perspectives a lot. Sometimes we just stay in our own track. People that are not exactly in what we do every day helps a lot as well.
Maybe understand more on the supply chain side that you're not. Yeah,
exactly.
Cool. What is the best career advice you ever received?
When I started, I took things I was like very focused and everything was very serious for me. And one day, the person who was my boss told me, just have fun. And he was right. I mean, you need to have fun in doing what you do. And yeah, of course, there is pressure, there is goals, targets, and everything. But you can't let that take away having fun and enjoy what you do.
I have a lot of fun doing what I do.
You can tell.
One thing most people don't know about you. You play tennis, you run.
Well, people know that.
But they don't know.
No, I think one thing that maybe not that many people know is that even though I'm Spanish from Spanish parents. I'm married to a French woman, and I've lived in 8 different countries in my life. So that now I've been back in Spain for 12 years. But in my previous life, I've had quite an international...
So you're a global citizen.
I feel like that, yeah.
Have you absorbed all of your culture? I feel like I have, so I'm asking.
I've always enjoyed very much. I mean, I've lived in countries as diverse as from Peru to Italy, from Ireland to the United States. And you learn a lot from each of those countries. And you learn a lot about yourself as well.
I agree with you. Javier, it was a pleasure having you here. Can't wait to see you in Barcelona in June. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula. My pleasure.